watching a baseball game, it's pretty clear who the important players are. The pitcher, the hitter, the guys in the field ready to defend, even the guys in the bullpen or dugout waiting for the chance to get on the clay. But there's one major player in this game that, if they're doing their job right, should go entirely unnoticed: the umpire. Umpires help enforce the rules during play. They call pitches as balls or strikes, whether hits are fair or foul, if a player is safe or out, and handle issues that come up on the field. And they do all of this under the pressure of full stadiums, games with big stakes, crowds that hate them, players and managers ready to fight them on any call, an ever-changing set of rules, a new challenge system, and fans everywhere ready to critique their accuracy. It's a tough job, but someone has to do it, and by the time an umpire has ascended to the majors, they should have the skills and judgment needed to get their calls right. And that's kind of the problem. Today, it feels like umpires are getting worse and worse. Blown calls, constant challenges, strikes outside the zone. The 2024 season seems to be a masterclass on horrible umpiring. But if that's true, are they really worse than ever? And if so, who can save us? If you've ever been to a baseball game, it's almost certain that you've seen a blown ball or strike. That's because umpires are human, which means they're not perfect, and for the most part, they're not expected to be. That makes it all the more exciting to watch a game like Game 2 of the 2022 World Series, when home plate umpire Pat Hoberg, under the biggest stakes he'd ever faced in his career, made history by calling an umpire's version of a perfect game, with 129 of 129 pitches called correctly. If Pat Hoberg is an example of what a perfect umpire could be, there's one person who's become synonymous with what a bad umpire is: Angel Hernandez. Hernandez has reached supervillain levels of infamy amongst baseball fans as one of the worst umpires to ever take the field. In 2023, he finished the regular season as one of the lowest rated umpires according to Umpire Auditor, with 161 missed calls in only 10 games. That was after Hernandez had sat out half the season due to a back injury and spent time in AAA to get readjusted to the game, where he still made headlines for being awful at his job. Interestingly, what we see in Angel Hernandez is an example of what happens because of transparency. In some ways, it makes sense that we would notice bad umpiring more often. Today, fans watching from home, when they can, or following along on apps like MLB app, can watch exactly where the ball lands in the virtually rendered strike zone. In real time, we can see where the pitches are being thrown and how they're being called. Also, thanks to sites like Umpire Scorecards and the previously mentioned Umpire Auditor, we can see real-time data for each game. Individual umpires can be graded based on their accuracy and consistency, so when the calls are off, it's not just noticed, it's talked about. So are calls really getting worse? Turns out, not really. Based on StatCast data going back to when pitch tracking started in 2008, 8.1% of strikes were miscalled as balls, and 7.1% of balls were called as strikes. Those percentages have been steadily declining, and in 2023, only 3.3% of strikes and 3.9% of balls were called incorrectly. So if data shows that umpires are actually more accurate than we think they are, why does it seem like they just keep getting worse and worse? You may think there's one strike zone, and you would be wrong. The strike zone seen on TV and through apps is based on the MLB's rulebook definition of the zone, which is the area over home plate from the midpoint between a batter's shoulders and the top of the uniform pants, when the batter is in his stance and prepared to swing, and at a point just below the kneecap. If it's in, it's a strike. If it's out, it's a ball. This is the zone that so many fans are aware of and watching at all times. However, the reality within MLB is very different. In MLB, a team of auditors sets up a strike zone for each player based on his height and the way he stands in the box. There's also a margin of error of 2 inches on each side of the plate, which is part of a collective bargaining agreement between the MLB and the MLB-UA, or Umpires Association, the Umpires Labor Union. The reason for the margin of error has partly to do with how MLB tracks balls. Currently, MLB parks use the Hawkeye system to track pitches, which has a margin of error of 0.16 of an inch. However, in the past, other systems had larger margins of error, and the umpires used these margins to negotiate their buffer zone up to 2 inches. The margin of error isn't the only thing that the MLB-UA worked in for their employees. According to ESPN, the union created a zone enforcement committee to double-check incorrect calls and file appeals on the scoring. In 2021, 30% of pitches appealed were overturned. So while fans may see a black and white outcome, the outcome for MLB isn't as binary. MLB will put pitches into one of 3 categories: correct, acceptable, which means it's within the buffer zone, and incorrect. An umpire's accuracy is graded based on their correct and acceptable calls. That means, on the infamous night when Kyle Schwarber lost it on Angel Hernandez for his horrible calls at the plate, fans might have seen an umpire score online of around 88%, far below the league standard. However, his official score, adjusted to MLB system, was 96.12%. Beyond our ability to watch balls cross the plate in real time on a virtual strike zone, this messiness over umpire grading may be one of the reasons that faith in umpires seems to have gone down. When their accuracy on paper and the one reported by the league are different, it's normal for fans to have questions, especially when even the league has admitted that an umpire like Hernandez had calls bad enough for him to lose a spot umping in the World Series, yet he's still considered good enough to keep his job. So what do you do when even though umpires have done their best, they're still not enough? You build a better umpire. The automatic ball strike system, or ABS, may be MLB's answer for failures by umpires, whether perceived or real. ABS uses a tracking system to detect whether a pitch is a ball or a strike, simple as that. And on the surface, this may sound like the answer to our prayers. Finally, an umpire who will always get it right. Except, that's not exactly true. Hawkeye Innovations, which is owned by Sony, is the company currently helping to develop the ABS for home plate umpiring. They're best known for tracking in and out calls in tennis, but they're also no strangers to MLB, as they're already in all 30 parks to provide StatCast data. The Hawkeye system has a margin of error of about 3 millimeters, or less than the width of an M&M. Not that one, this one. This is much better than the current 2-inch margin of error and Zone Enforcement Council umpires use today. But the issue with implementing a Robo Ump isn't in its accuracy, it's in what it measures. The Hawkeye system is very accurate at detecting whether a ball grazed a previously determined invisible space, but that wouldn't mean the pitch is always a strike. For example, when using a 3D rectangle for a strike zone, if a curveball were to, at any point, graze some part of that cube, it would be considered a strike, even if it ended up going straight into the dirt. Breaking balls that come in over the plate high, but break down into the zone at some point towards the back, would also be considered a strike. Current testing has moved to a 2D zone in the middle of home plate, which might mitigate some of these issues, but suffice it to say, ABS is not as infallible as we may think. Still, plans to move forward with some version of an automated system are underway, and currently 2 options are being tested in AAA ballparks. There's the full system, which is what people usually think of when they hear Robo Ump. This system puts all the power in the hands of ABS to call the pitch, and then sends the result to a home plate human umpire through an earpiece. That human essentially relays the calls and manages traffic to and from the plate, that's all. The second is a hybrid challenge system, where human umpires still call the balls and strikes at first, but a team can challenge the call and use ABS to verify if it was right. While the full Robo Ump option could provide more accuracy overall once testing is complete, the challenge system could provide more entertainment for fans and allow catchers to keep framing pitches, as the first call would still be done by a human. Though we haven't seen a Robo Ump make their debut on the show just yet, the system has been in testing since 2019 when it entered the Atlantic League, and it's safe to say that as the system keeps being fine-tuned and the league decides on the best way to deploy them, Robo Umps aren't too far away. But are they the answer? On the surface, Robo Umps may seem like the best option. If MLB can figure out the strike zone, Robo Umps will be pitch perfect, pun intended, and pitches that cross the plate will be correctly identified as balls or strikes. No 2-inch margin of error, no 6-inch off the plate judgment call. Yet some fans have asked, what might we lose for the price of this perfection? For better or worse, heckling umpires is a cornerstone of baseball. From Little League to the majors, fans have been arguing with umps about their calls since the beginning, and the players have been too. Without human umps, we'll lose what many may consider a quintessential part of the game. But there's more than a little bit of nostalgia that gets lost. With Robo Umps, there's no drama, no intrigue, no suspense. We know exactly what is called is the right call. Long gone will be the days of fiery arguments at home plate, of dramatic ejections from managers or players that take it a bit too far. There's no real reason for managers or players to argue or complain because who would you argue with? You might say these changes to the game are necessary and part of growing, that the enhancements received from Robo Umps are better than watching the game be affected by the inaccuracy of humans and a lack of accountability and transparency from MLB and the MLB UA. It's worth it to change, even if we lose some of the old-timeness of baseball past. The thing is, Robo Umps alone can't be the answer. Even with their advanced tech, when it comes to the strike zone, there are still enough questionable situations that Hawkeye's Robo Umps won't have the judgment to decide. So what hero can emerge to save the day? Well, maybe the answer is not one ump, but two. The challenge system would combine the power of the Robo Ump and the human ump. So we have peace of mind knowing that balls and strikes are being tracked, but also have the judgment of a human to know when a ball that grazes the strike zone is definitely still a ball. Seriously egregious calls in big moments can be challenged by managers and still be overturned, but with the challenge limit, there's an element of strategy to when those are used. It might not be the full fix that proponents of the Robo Umps want. And for those who love nostalgia of the game, it might still be a loss from the way that baseball has operated since it was first played. But it might be the compromise that gets us to a better game overall. According to Morgan Sword, an MLB executive vice president behind pitch clocks who is now spearheading Robo Ump testing, which option moves forward will be decided by fans, players, and coaches. The hybrid system may not be the hero we deserve, but it might be the hero we need. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, where we'll be putting out more deep dives into MLB and baseball in general. And let me know what you think about Robo Umps in the comments. Are you for them? Against them? Do you prefer the challenge system? We want to know. And thanks for watching.